Okay, so I've got to make reference to the fact that we've talked about all these great books out there that have, lots of knowledge weaved throughout them and lots of stuff that you can apply, and you've got to look for the lessons and actually be able to do something to it. But fundamentally, there's some really good content in there, and you've added to the mix recently.
So thanks. Yeah, so the book is called Even Better If. Where that comes from, the title was very deliberate, because in my world around coaching, and when we talk about things like feedback and so on, we always try and encourage people to use the language of even better if. So we've done something in a certain way. How do we make it even better? So you're always building on a positive, rather than kind of necessarily going to a negative space. Well, that was rubbish. You need to stop doing that and start doing this instead. That just doesn't land. It doesn't work with people. So that's where the title came from. How do we make ourselves, how do we make 2022, whatever it may be, even better? How do we, that continual thing I talked about, forward momentum, moving forward. So the book is looking at sort of organizations, leadership, and people. So there's hopefully there's something for everyone, from everything from talking about organizational purpose and change right the way through to things like psychological safety within the workplace. And my bit was leadership, because that's my passion. So to sit down and go, okay, you've got 3 chapters to write down everything you believe to be true about leadership. How scary is that? But what a brilliant exercise to have to go through. So in a nutshell, I created something that I believe to be very true around this concept that, for me, I think leadership is probably 85% attitudinal. It's about a mindset. Leaders think better than everybody else. If somebody is just seeing something through a different lens than everybody else, which becomes empowering and enables you to move forwards with it.
Yeah.
That's the nub, the difference, I believe, in business, particularly of people that stand out from a leadership perspective versus everybody else. So that led me to say, okay, if I was to distill that down, and this is based on a lot of research and interviews and all the rest of it, and I came up with something called the God principle. So it's a bit of a play on words around leaders being the gods, but the God principle, I would think of them as being 3 mindset, three cognitive habits that anyone can develop, and they are: the G stands for growth, which is all about having the word visionary is quite grandiose, but seeing things better. Mm-hmm. Do you look at processes, people, teams, structures, whatever, and you see them and how they could be better? The O then is optimism, and optimism is not the same as positivity. Optimism is when things are really tough, I'm still able to see that glimmer of light, that glimmer of opportunity in the darkness, rather than faking some kind of positivity that everything's going to be fine, because it's incredibly artificial and people recognize it. People can smell fake positivity a mile away. Whereas optimism will enable you to move forwards because you are actually focused on something that can be done. It's very different. And then the D is disruption. And disruption is the bit which is the actual, I said earlier about the difference between leadership and management, and leadership being something to do with change. I think a leader's job is to continually disrupt with the view of evolving their team or their business to meet the needs of their future customer. So, to improve is to change. So to change something requires an element of disruption. It could be a huge amount of disruption. It could be a small amount of disruption, but there's always disruption. Great leaders are disruptors, but they only ever disrupt to move forwards with the intention of growth. And if you put those 3 things together and they become habitual, they become part of your DNA, they just become part of how you show up. From a leadership point of view, you are off to the races.
Love that. Love that.
Well, as you could hear, I loved this. So if you want to hear the whole conversation with Charlie, or to check out some of the other remarkable guests that we've had on the Infinite Pi Thinking podcast with me, Al Fawcett, head over to the website, follow us on social media, or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. I'd love to know what you think.